Being with us, the EU this Thursday said Moldova was facing an unprecedented campaign of disinformation from Russia ahead of key parliamentary elections with the aim of knocking the country off its pro-European course. Moldova's pro-EU Premier Maia Sandu, whose party is narrowly in the lead according to the polls, is warning that the Kremlin is looking to buy votes, stir unrest and wage an online disinformation campaign.
Moldova is gearing up for a crucial parliamentary election, one that could veer its future towards Europe or Russia.
Which would be better for us? We already know how it was with friendship with Russia, but what will happen in the EU?
The choice is technically in the hands of the country's 2.4 million people, but many believe Moscow is trying to influence the outcome.
So the main goal is to mobilize pro-Russian voters, to demotivate and demobilize pro-European voters, and to create confusion among the undecided voters.
On Monday, police announced they had carried out 250 raids and arrested dozens of people accused of planning Russian-backed disorder. President Maia Sandu then doubled down on the claim of interference.
The Kremlin is pouring hundreds of millions of euros to buy hundreds of thousands of votes on the banks of the Dnistria River and abroad. People are intoxicated daily with lies. Hundreds of individuals are paid to provoke disorder, violence and spread fear.
The main opposition to her pro-European Action Solidarity Party are the Russia-friendly Patriot Bloc, who say she is trying to scare and silence the people. Moldova, a former Soviet republic, applied for EU membership after Russia began its invasion of Ukraine. Its geographical location has since heightened its importance to both the bloc and Moscow. And on Wednesday, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had a warning about the region.
Georgia is dependent on Russia. And for many, many years, Belarus has also been moving toward dependence on Russia. Europe cannot afford to lose Moldova too.
Russia has repeatedly denied meddling in Moldova's election campaign.
Let's get the analysis and bring in Clara Volintaru, who's director of the Black Sea Trust for the German Marshall Fund of the United States. Clara, thanks for being with us. Can I start by asking, how big a threat do you think this is, this Russian interference, to the democratic process in Moldova?
Good evening, and thank you for bringing this subject to the attention of your viewers. I think the Russian interference in Moldova is important, not just for the Moldovan elections, but also for the threat that Russian interference poses across the entire European Union. We've seen the same tactics that have been played out in Moldovan past elections for the EU referendum and the presidential election last year, played out across different elections in Europe, Romania, Germany, France. So Moldova is really a test case for the type of interference, electoral interference, and not only that Russia is testing to distort and destabilize our democratic processes.
Now, Clara, Russia denies doing this, but Russia always denies doing these kind of things. So in what way is Moscow meddling in Moldova's political process? What can people look out for? What can people expect to sort of see?
There are overlapping factors. We can't say that everything that is attributable to, let's say, electoral distortions or misconduct is only Russia's doing. There are many things that can go wrong during election times, candidates that do not follow electoral rules. Clientelism has been around Europe and elsewhere for decades, so it's not just Russia's doing. But nevertheless, we have concrete, palpable evidence that Russia has mobilized networks of intermediaries, brokers, as we call them in the clientelistic literature, and their tactics have evolved. Last year, we saw approximately 50 million euros being distributed across informally, and the police has investigated the vote buying schemes across Moldova for the presidential and EU referendum elections. And now the intelligence services and police in Moldova Moldova signaled that they estimate the amount of vote buying value from Russia to be around 100 million euros or more. So you can definitely see that the tools and techniques of electoral manipulation that have been used by misguided candidates in different settings across the globe are now instrumentalized to a new level by Russia in a foreign country.
Of course, Transnistria, or Pridnestrovi, as some people call it, is very much the main sort of cause célèbre of this story, isn't it? It's an area that Russia is claiming as its own in some way, shape or form. And of course, it kind of gives that sort of echo to what we saw in Georgia in 2008, what we saw in Crimea and Donbass in Ukraine in 2014, and then, of course, the full invasion of Ukraine in 2022. It gives Russia, Vladimir Putin, an excuse to say, hang on, there are Russian people there that we need to somehow save.
Yes, and Transnistria is more important for Russia in the war in Ukraine than in regards to the upcoming elections on Sunday. Transnistria can represent an additional front of attack for Ukraine. On Ukraine from Russia. And I think this is one of the biggest threats that is posed not just to Moldova, but also to neighboring Ukraine. So Transnistria is a matter that President Maia Sandu has been very carefully trying to manage. The European Union has also tried to stabilize the situation in the context of the energy crisis last year by providing additional support and energy resources from neighboring Romania. So there are many overlapping factors that can destabilize the region in Transnistria, not just the Russian army that's still based in Transnistria, but also energy crisis, as I mentioned, economic issues, and of course, the malign interferences in the informational space, disinformation and false narratives that create not just anxiety and fear, but also mobilize the people against the pro-European forces in the country.
Clara, Maia Sandu leading in the opinion polls, we are told. What are the chances that she will hold that lead?
We can look at the polls and the local information on the ground as a reason of optimism for the pro-European party of Maia Sandu PAS. But at the same time, we know that the traditional anchor of Maia Sandu's party and her own presidency has been the diaspora. And what we've seen in the Romanian elections this year in the spring, and now we can expect the same to happen in the Moldovan elections on Sunday, is a much higher infiltration of disinformation and manipulation of voters in the diaspora as well, from Russian-backed messaging and networks such as Telegram, TikTok, so social media networks that mobilize a pro-Russian electorate or a Eurosceptic electorate, also in the diasporas of these countries. So this is a reason of concern. If in the EU referendum last year, we saw the diaspora pivoting the vote strongly in favor of the referendum, now there has been a much more dense campaign across the diaspora networks from, again, Russian sources. So there is reason to have some caution and concern regarding the very firm pro-European vote that would have normally came from the diaspora in Moldova.
We will see how it develops. Clara, thank you so much for your analysis, which really throws a lot of light on the situation in Moldova, which, of course, we're watching closely in the run-up to the vote this weekend. Clara Volintaru of the German Marshall Fund of the United States, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Pleasure having you here on France 24, as always. Thank you very much, Clara Volintaru.